This is a story that I've told before, but when I told the story, there were details left out. And it wasn't because they weren't important. I just didn't think that they were pertinent in the sense that I assumed these things were common knowledge. It would be like me telling you a story and saying, oh, by the way, gravity was there, as if you didn't know. As we got deeper into quarantine, isolation, social distancing, we were spending an awful lot more time online. And as such, social media has been on fire, not just in the attendance sense, more along the lines of in the dumpster sense, which I'm sure you've seen. Fire. Racism has been out in full swing in the last place that I expected to see it, and that was the goth scene. People running the gamut from comments to scoffing at Black Lives Matter to flat out saying that anyone above a 3 on the Fitzpatrick scale has no place in the goth scene. And for those of you who don't know, the Fitzpatrick scale is a number scale from 1 to 6 that basically measures a person's reaction to the sun, and 1 being anybody who steps out into the sun and within 12 seconds turns into a human lobster, and then 6 being black. It's a ridiculous concept, but threads were shut down, fights broke out, feelings were hurt, and seeds were planted. And some of the knock-on effects of these things are people of color feeling unwelcome and unwanted in the scene that they know and love. Impressionable young baby bats seeing this behavior and potentially emulating it. Then you have, obviously, the friction and tension that arises as a result of all this discourse. And then you have the non-goth people of color who are already on the fence of the lifestyle of their goth people of color friends or family and say, see, I told you, goth is something that weird white people do and they don't even want you anyway. No, 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 no. Goth was founded by white people and black people and Asian and Latino, Hispanic. Side by side, they built the scene together from the very beginning. And as it was back then, to this very day, people of color remain very much involved and very much a huge part of the subculture. Unlike these bigoted Kohlenbergers that are carrying out this racist behavior in the first place. And the irony of that is that they're about as goth as a labradoodle. They're the, oh, goth was invented by Victorians because it's pale and scary types, and they would not know a goth band if one rang their doorbell and punched them in the nose. All right, I'm gonna get comfy because I'm taking it back. We're going back a little bit further, going back to junior high school. So when I was 10 years old in 1990, my family decided to move to Florida. Now, I lived on the cusp of like the Queens-Nassau border, and that's where I grew up. Now, grandparents lived in a town called Cape Coral, which at the time was very rural, very sheltered, very conservative. There wasn't a lot to do. I didn't really have much room to grow into my own person because everything you either knew from your peers who only really got things from their parents, MTV, and the radio. And I thought in my head that people, cultures, were separated culturally by music. And what I mean by that is that white people, you either listen to country, rock, rap, R&B. Hispanic, you listen to a lot of Latin music. And if you were black, you listened to rap and R&B solely. And it was weird because the white people were like the queen on the chessboard. They can go in any direction. But I know from personal experience because, having black friends, Spanish friends, white friends, that there was a lot of music that they just didn't get. I remember I had a birthday party, my 13th birthday party. I had all of my friends over. And when the rock music came on, that's when my black and Hispanic friends were like, yeah, we're going in the pool now. And they left everybody else inside. While I remember the song too. It was my boyfriend at the time, my junior high school boyfriend. He loved Lenny Kravitz, and it was Lenny Kravitz, Are You Gonna Go My Way? They turn off the lights, they put on a strobe light, and everybody else was just kind of slam dancing in my living room. So, growing up in that environment, I assumed, okay, well, people are separated culturally by music. 1994, I moved back to New York. But instead of this area, moving back to the Queens area, we moved way out east. We moved to Ronkonkoma. It wasn't as urbanized as I originally had lived in New York, but it definitely wasn't as rural as Florida was. So I moved back to New York, and of course the welcome wagon is this girl Dawn that lives across the street, and she invites me out to this club called The Shop or Voodoo Lounge. Every Sunday when there's no school on Monday, or every single Sunday in the summertime, it's open and it's all ages, only on those nights. This was the summer before my very first year of high school. I was 14 years old and I was ignorant, but not in the racist sense, but in the uncultured way you'd expect from a 14-year-old. Everything I knew up until that point in my life, I learned from TV, my peers, or my parents. Anything beyond the knowledge that I'd accumulated at that point would be uncharted territory, and that's exactly where I was headed. On the drive before entering through those doors, I had no idea what to expect because I had nothing to compare it to. Now, the only thing I knew is the way Dawn dressed, the way her friends dressed, and the little bit of music that they showed me, which is basically The Cure and 9 Inch Nails. So let me give you a little background on this place. It is located in an industrial park. It's huge. It's a conglomerate of several warehouses kind of put together to create several different rooms. I knew nothing of the alternative scene. I knew nothing of any subcultures within. I didn't know goth or its history. I didn't know hardcore. I didn't know ska. I didn't know metal. I knew a little bit about punk because my mother was punk. My father punched a Ramon. So I just had kind of like the base knowledge, but everything else, I didn't know what to expect. So despite going in there with no preconceived notions or expectations, as it turns out, I had one all along, subconsciously, that I was completely unaware of. I realized it when I walked into the main room and saw a sea of faces in every color. My 14-year-old brain went when I saw black faces in the crowd, because everything that I'd known up to that point, I expected to walk in that room and see nothing but white faces. All I knew was that only white people liked this style of music. I remember kind of vividly my first images. So when you walk into the space, right, it's a long hallway and you round the corner to your left. And the first thing you see is the main room. And in that main room, the very first kind of thing right here is your dance floor. And my eyes focused in on this one girl. She was a black girl. She had shoulder-length black hair. She was wearing glasses, spiked collar, black lipstick, cute little barrettes in her hair. She was wearing a band t-shirt, but I could not tell you because I don't remember, and I probably wouldn't know at the time because I knew nothing about music. Fishnet shirt underneath the band t-shirt with her fingers through the holes. She was wearing black, sort of cut off ripped shorts, fishnet tights, and combat boots. And she was just passionately singing along to the song that was playing at the time, and that was 9 Inch Nails' Terrible Lie. And the dance that she was doing, I later learned, was the goth hop. It was then at that very moment that I unlearned the notion that music separates us by race. Music doesn't separate races. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It brings us all together. The music, the makeup, the hair, the people. It was like every alternative kid from every race, culture, background on Long Island was here in attendance, under one roof, having a blast together. Everyone was welcome, and everybody had this sort of demeanor where they truly felt comfortable. You can just look at them and see that they felt like they were in their element, they were comfortable, they were home, and they were amongst their tribe. There was no tension, no prejudice, just a bunch of kids dressing the way that they want, hanging out with the people that they want to hang out with, listening to the music that they want to hear. And their cup was way too busy overflowing with all of that to even think about bringing race into the equation. And it wasn't long until I pretty much realized kind of right away that this too was my home. And as time went on, as I found myself, I found my place in Goth. And as I ventured out more to places in New York that catered to the goth subculture, I found that people of color were just as much as a subculture as much as any other race. New York is a cultural melting pot after all, but this isn't something that's just intrinsic to New York. This is the entire goth scene, and it's been that way since Peter Murphy sneezed out his first bat. So the message that I want to impart is Black Lives Matter. Goth doesn't have a color, and racists are posers. I missed you.